we're going to look at rewriting a quadratic function to find its vertex. The process that we will use to do this is called completing the square. For our first examples, we're going to look at quadratics that do not have a quadratic coefficient. The first thing that we do is separate the constant. So I'm going to rewrite this as x squared plus 6x. I'm going to leave a space, close my parentheses, and put my minus 15 there. The second step is to add half of the linear coefficient squared inside the parentheses. 6 is the linear coefficient, so that means I'm adding 3 squared inside the parentheses. And we're going to subtract that amount outside the parentheses. So we'll make this minus 9. The last thing that we do is collapse the perfect square. So we'll have x plus 3 squared and simplify the constant. So minus 15 minus 9 gives me minus 24. When we collapse the perfect square, it will always work like this. Whatever this sign is, will be the sign here, and this number will always go there. Let's look at another one. X squared minus 8x plus 22. First thing we're going to do is separate that constant out. So x squared minus 8x, I'm going to close my parenthesis, plus 22. Next, I'm adding half of the linear coefficient squared. 8 is the linear coefficient. Half of that is 4. So this will be plus 4 squared. And then on the outside, minus 16. We add it inside the parentheses, subtract it outside. Because what we're doing is essentially doing nothing, right? We're adding 16 and subtracting 16. So then we have x minus 4 quantity squared plus 6, right? Plus 22 minus 16. You know, I'm not sure I put the squared on that last one. Let's look. Oh, I did. Good for me. Again, when we did this, we had the minus sign comes here and the 4 comes here. So now let's look at what happens when we have a quadratic coefficient. So our step 1 here is going to be just a little bit different. So for step 1, it says factor out the quadratic coefficient. That's going to be this 2. So I'm going to pull the 2 out front of parentheses, and I'm going to have x squared plus 8x. I'm going to close my parentheses, minus 25. Okay? We're not taking the 2 out of the 25. Next, we add half of the linear term squared inside the parentheses. So this is plus 4 squared. But when I do the subtraction on the outside, it has to be minus the 2 times the 4 squared, right? We can't forget about this 2 here. And then when we collapse it, the 2 stays out front. We'll have x, the sign is plus 4 squared. And then we had negative 25 minus 32, so minus 57. One more. Again, we have a quadratic coefficient, so we're going to factor it out. Minus 3, x squared, minus 4x, right? When we factor out the negative 3 from a positive 12, we get a negative 4. And then we have the plus 11. Again, we're not doing anything to that constant right now. Next, we add half of the linear term squared. The linear term is 4 here, or linear coefficient rather. So plus 2 squared. But then over here on the outside, it's going to be minus the negative 3, which is the coefficient we're multiplying by, and the 2 squared, which is 4. So putting all that together, negative 3, x minus 2 squared. And then I have a positive 11 minus a negative 12, so plus 23. There you go.